everyone. Welcome back to the Nigeria in Focus show, a show where we get to discuss critical issues affecting the nation. My name is Bukola Adimula, and it's a pleasure to be your host again for today's episode. Our topic for this episode is press freedom in focus. As we all know, media plays an important role in shaping people's public opinion, holding our government accountable, and as a platform where citizens can air their voice. But this is not without its own struggle. Today, we are going to be looking at the challenges that media and the journalists face when it comes to dissemination of information. Today with me, I have just one guest who is in the media space and is going to give us insight into the challenges that journalists face and the way forward. Before we start the conversation, I will give my guest the opportunity to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Chinonso Kenneth. I'm a freelance journalist, a media consultant, and also a publisher. I am a freelance journalist whose work has appeared in both national and international platforms. I'm the publisher of the SolutionsPaper, a online-based solution-focused outlet, and I'm also the chairman of the Media and Communication Development Foundation, a non-profit working in the areas of press freedom and solution journalism.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Chinonso.
Thank you.
My first question will be, maybe just provide us the overview of press freedom in Nigeria and how it has evolved, starting from back then in the 1960s and now. Can you just take us on a very, very short journey of how press freedom has evolved?
From whatever airport you want to look at press freedom from, it has always been dicey in Nigeria. Whether from era of independence, the First Republic, Second, Third, and now the Fourth Republic, press freedom has always been dicey. A recent report from the Reporters Without Borders shows that Nigeria ranks 123 out of 180 countries. So that shows how far down we are when it comes to the issue of press freedom. Reporting on issues of politics, on issues of financial embezzlement is always a dangerous effort to undertake. And that has shown, this journalist called Dadiati, Idris Abubakar, has been missing for over 2 years now from Kaduna. He has not been seen. Just last week, we saw, 2 weeks ago actually, we saw journalists being beaten up in Imo alongside the NLC president. And these are issues that affect the way journalists do their work in Nigeria. So we see that journalists are, in a way, they are caged. They are caged by not only government officials, but we also see high-ranking private individuals engaging in sabotaging press freedom, and that is really, really sad to see. I also like to state last year, between last year and this year, we saw a lot of broadcast media and the press in general being hammered by fines from the NBC and others. So these are actions that tells you that the press is under attack in Nigeria, and they are very, very. As of 2022, about 3 to 4 media houses who reposted a documentary by the BBC on banditry in Zamfara were fined just because they rebroadcasted a documentary. So when things like this happen, you ask yourself as a journalist before you undertake a story, or as a press, before you undertake a story, what will be the blowback? What will be the consequence of this? And most times you find out that there is a heavy price to pay if you really want to do your groundbreaking journalism in Nigeria. So press freedom in Nigeria is something that is, I would say in my own words, it's under heavy attack on all fronts, right? Even from the media houses, the issue of low wages, low salaries is also an affront on press freedom. Because if as a journalist you are not earning well, that also affects your work. right? So these things are part of the issues that affect press freedom in Nigeria. And I'll say from previous years up to the present moment, I don't think there's been heavy improvements. I mean, in the past, we've seen journalists being killed. What's his name again? A lot of journalists have been killed. Mr. Mayor, yeah, and then journalists that got blown up with a bomb, Delegiwa, and up till now we still see a lot of these things happening. We see journalists being detained arbitrarily without charge, without bail. We see journalists being killed, and nothing is being done about that. So from the past till now, there hasn't been really any significant improvement in press freedom. Last year, the Reporters Without Borders data shows that Nigeria was ranked, I think, 129, and then this year we rank 123. So some people might say, oh, there is an improvement. But if you look at the reality on ground, there really isn't.
It's not an improvement. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. It's like, back then in the military regime, journalists, we know that, okay, we're like in the military regime, so literally every information that they will be passing will be looked at by the head of state and their people. But now that we're in the democratic regime, I still remember the fine. I don't know, is it Channels or Analyst TV that was like fine that last year? It's like during
both Channels and Arise at a point were fine.
They were fine. Yes. And then we be like, they are just doing their work, and still, I would just say, with what you've said and from what we've seen, there have not really been a lot of improvement when it comes to press freedom in Nigeria. So what are the challenges? I mean, you are a journalist, a freelance journalist, and you've done some work relating to some groundwork related to covering of stories, etc. What are the legal and regulatory challenges that journalists and media houses face when it comes to dissemination of information?
I would say the first. Okay, let me start with what is called the FOI Act, the Freedom of Information Act, which allows you as a journalist to seek for information from public and government offices, and you are supposed to get that information. So we depend on that act to assess information that is generally not open to the public. Yeah, but you find out that when you use that FOI Act to demand for information, most times it goes into a black hole. The public office doesn't respond, and then when you follow through, most times they tell you the initial request you sent was missing. And you find out that getting this information are most times out of many impossible, because the organization that's supposed to give out the information to you, they're not responding, even though there is a law that mandates them to report, but it is not, you don't get that. And then when you use the FOI Act, you have to most times resort to taking them to court, which is a long legal battle. So you see that even though there are laws, regulation to democratize access to information for journalists, they do not actually work in Nigeria. So these are Nigeria. Yes, they do not actually work. So these are some of the issues, and I would say again the fact that journalists are being brutalized without any apparent consequence is also a legal regulation we face that impede our work. I mean, we've seen journalists being brutalized, being beaten, and nothing comes out of it. Like the example I cited earlier, 2 weeks ago, when there was a protest in Imo State held by the Labour Congress, Nigerian Labour Congress, and journalists there were beaten up alongside the NLC president. And up to as we speak, I don't think any action has been taken. Anyone has been charged for that. And so these are the issues. You go out to do your work and you are at risk of being beaten, you're at risk of being brutalized. In 2020, during the NSAS protest, we saw it playing out over and over again. I mean, one of our TV anchors was manhandled on air during the just concluded elections. We saw same thing, and then nothing comes out of it. No legal repercussion for for those that carry out these heinous acts. So these are some of the legal problems we face from the non-compliance of the FOI Act by public officials, and then lack of legal assistance for journalists who have their rights impeded. So these are some of the issues when it comes to regulations.
I want to know, is it that the journalists do not have a burden to back them up when issues like this arise, that will take it upon themselves to? Because I don't want to believe that we are in a country where journalists are just left, because journalists are doing an amazing work, bringing hidden stories out and letting the public to be aware that this is what is going on. They are risking their lives. So I don't want to assume that the nation is just left like that and we just leave the journalists like, okay, go and do your work, publish your story, and yeah, your life is in your hands like that. There should be a body that safeguards journalists' rights.
Yeah, we have a couple of them. I mean, there is the Nigerian Union of Journalists, which is our general body that covers us. So that they also come into play when they can. There's Nigerian Editors Guild. There is, and there are some other non-profits who are working in the media space that advocate for press freedom. We have media rights agenda. So we have a couple of those around, but in a country where the rule of law is not really entrenched, there isn't much they can do, right? So what they do backing us up is mostly legal, taking the cases to court. In cases where journalists' life are at stake, they also work to take those journalists out of the country, take them abroad for their safety and all that. So these are some of the things they do. But like I always say, in a country where rule of law is not really entrenched, there isn't much one can do, because even if you get the right judgment, implementation is another problem. If a journalist is abused or brutalized and the case is taken to court and he gets justice, implementation is another problem. There are a lot of court orders that are being flaunted on a daily basis. I mean, the brother of publisher of Reportera News has been in police detention since August this year, and
nothing is being done.
Nothing is being done, despite public outcry, despite pressure from non-profit and other NGOs, but still. So since there is no rule of law in Nigeria, it's typically very hard for organizations working in the press to really do much to safeguard journalists. Yes, I mean, you see the case of this very popular journalist, David Hundeyin. He has to go out of the country to continue doing what he's doing. I'm sure if he had still been in the country,
he can't.
Yeah. So these are the issues.
Thank you so much for shedding light on that. Because as for me, I just believe that we do not just have three arms of government, but it's four. Because the media is like the fourth arm. Yeah. And while we think that the judiciary is the last hope of the oppressed, I think the media plays an important role when it comes to assisting the oppressed and the citizen.
Right.
Pressure from the media can, escalate matters, depending on how the media is being used. Exactly. Is it that we escalate it negatively, or it will help amplify that particular issues? It just depends. And still, to know that journalists are facing this up to now, I mean in Nigeria, so definitely I understand that these are issues that journalists face. Personally, as a journalist, what are the challenges and danger you've encountered that have actually to an extent impacted your work?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'll first say that I'm a solution-focused journalist. So I moved from being a problem-focused one to a solution-focused journalist, which means what I basically write on now is solutions to problems, how people, organizations, individuals, communities are solving problems in Nigeria. So I'm looking at the brighter side. So that, in a way, reduces a lot of risk for me. Yeah, but then again, before I moved to Sojo, I've come across a couple of endangering situations. First, I'll still go back to the FOI Act. I mean, it has cost me a lot of stories because you need information, you need data to write some of these investigative stories. And then when you use the FOI Act to get some of this information and they are not forthcoming, it means more or less that story might not fly and might not see the light of day. So that is one. And I can also remember having to, I mean, travel to very remote areas where there is violence to cover stories. And this is one thing I would like to say as well. I think journalists should be given special recognition, at least in Nigeria, so that at least when you go somewhere and introduce yourself as a journalist, you have that space, you have that little security. But you don't find that in Nigeria. The situation, the profession is mostly downtrodden. So going to some of these areas to report, traveling to remote areas, traveling to conflict areas to do stories, puts journalists in a lot of danger most of the times. I think one of the situations that I can remember, I was going to a remote village in Gogolada here for a story, and then I was attacked on the way back, and then some of my equipment were taken. Yeah, so although this might not be a blight on the part of the government, but then on the citizenry, and I'm sure those people knew I was a journalist because I was just coming out from from their community, so they knew I was coming to do a story, and yet that happened. So not just the government, but even from citizens, we also face lack of freedom. You know, we also face oppression. We also face some violence. I think when you introduce yourself as a journalist, that should, in the mind of everyone, give you a special status. But that isn't happening in Nigeria.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that story you just shared with us. It's good for us to keep hearing these stories because stories makes it more real. A lot of people are not going to believe the struggles that journalists are facing before we get these stories that we are seeing.
Exactly.
A lot of them have to go undercover. A lot of them have to hide their identity. Yes. A lot of them have to even travel asylum and etc. out of the country because if they remain, their lives are in danger. But still, they still give us that information that we need. And I mean, as you said, we need to give journalists, the media houses, organizations that are doing work in amplifying and bringing out these stories. We need to give them their accolade because they are doing an amazing job. So yeah, thank you so much for all journalists out there. We know that we're in the digital era, and it's no more the traditional media as of then that it's just the newspaper and the TV station, they say. Now we have the digital media that a lot of people now use. How do you think this technological advancement has impacted media, both negatively and positively?
Okay. All right. So let me start from the positive aspects. The democratization of online media has, I would say, in a way, also democratized the press. We see a lot of citizen journalists these days. I mean, citizens from their house are putting out information that are very useful. We see a lot of citizens being more active online on social media. So because the digital space is now free and open to everyone, we see that information has now become more it's easier to get information. I mean, just with your phone, if you go online, you easily can get any kind of news you need from a variety of sources, right? So that has increased news sources. Next to the negative aspects, yes, everything that has an advantage certainly has a disadvantage. So even though it has made news dissemination easier, faster, and cheaper, we see it has also led to a mammoth rise in fake news. Misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda is now rife because of varieties of sources again. So, I mean, these days people can't even tell the difference between a blogger, a blog site, and a news website. So, I mean, anyone can just wake up and get a blog and post whatever they want to post because of engagement and the payment and all that. So it has also led to a huge rise in disinformation, misinformation, and fake news. So these are the two sides of the coin.
Yes. Thank you so much. I remember like a comment I saw on Twitter one day, and the poster was like, if that there's no need for journalists again since we have blogger, and a lot of media persons I know and journalists were like, no, you can't compare a journalist because they know the risks they are taking. Yes. With a blogger that will just sit there at home and just wait for someone to just say that, okay, this is the news going on,
and they
will just copy and paste. Exactly. They won't even make their findings. Exactly. So you cannot compare them, they're risking their life. Just a whole lot of back and forth. I was like, yeah, this is the digital age that we are. So how do you think it's possible for us to the truth is the fact that we're in digital age and we cannot go back.
Yeah.
So it's a way we have to start looking at the way forward. How can we curb this fake news, this misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda, just as you said? Yeah. What can be done to adjust, decrease, or limit it that people can easily be able to verify that, okay, this news is fake, this news is real or original? What do you think can be done there?
For a start, I think there needs to be more public awareness on, like you said, the difference between bloggers and journalists. I think that's the fundamental issue, because people get news from blogs, and they'll say, "Oh, I got it from a news website." Oh, I got it from a news website, without knowing that that is just a blog,
like
a personal blog.
You say, "Oh, I got it from a news website."
Yeah, or whichever blog. Yes. So there needs to be more public awareness on the difference between bloggers and media houses. I know there are a lot of online news media these days, so there needs to be that dichotomy. I would say, instead of the National Assembly looking for bills to stifle social media or press freedom, they should rather look at bills to differentiate between proper media houses and blogs. I think that really go a long way so that when you get news, it will be clear to you that, oh, this is a blog, or I got this from a blog, and I got this from a news media. That is one. Secondly, and most importantly, I think there are a lot of fact-checking organizations these days, where one can easily verify and fact-check news, information, and whatnot. But I still think we need to take that a notch higher. Even though there are fact-checking organizations, I think citizens need to get these verifications at their fingertips. So I think we need to incorporate the use of AI in our fact checking, so that it will be way easier for someone to easily verify a story or an information or whatever data they get. Yes.
Thank you so much for that. We've heard of censorship, and how do you think journalists navigate? What are these censorship that either self-imposed or state-imposed, and how do you think journalists can navigate through it?
I'll start from your last question. The only the best way journalists navigate censorship is by going independent, right? By being independent journalists. For instance, David Hundeyin again, because I mean censorship is something you can't run away with. You can't run away from in the Nigerian space. Not only in Nigeria, I mean generally, there is always censorship in the press space. But that does not mean all of us will be independent journalists. Yeah. I think it depends. It's on the policy of the media house itself, right? So when you find that the owner, the publisher of a media house has political affiliations, you tend to see that censorship trickling down to the staff because if you write a story, for instance, that goes against one of his friends, you are almost certain it will be heavily censored or even killed. So that these are some of the issues. You also find out that as a journalist, your bias also comes into play sometimes, and that also you know make you censor. Like I said earlier, reporting on political issues, religious issues, ethnic issues, financial issues is always a problem. Because you always have that problem of censorship, especially when it comes to political corruption stories. You always have that from your editor, from yourself. I mean, the fact that we are under attack as pressmen, presswomen, um, also makes you want to censor what you write. You think about your life, you think about your job when you do these things. And I also circle back to the pay scale in Nigeria. The fact that journalists are paid meager salaries most times, that also in a way affects the way we do our work, also affects censorship. It has given rise to what is called brown envelope journalism, where journalists take money, take gratuities, take bribe to put out a story. And once you do that, you see that you're already censoring yourself, because once you accept a gift to do a story, I mean, it's not everything you can write in that report. So I would still stand that the best way to navigate censorship in Nigeria as a journalist is by being an independent journalist.
Which, as you said, not all
not yeah,
journalists
not
can
all of
end up
us
being
can be
independent. I
independent
remember I was
journalists.
having a conversation with a journalist. We met at a training here in Abuja. I think he came from either Undo or Ogu, I can't really remember. And he was like, in his media house, that there's some story he cannot publish. As soon as he take it to the table of his editor,
Yeah,
it's like a clash between them. He cannot publish
yeah.
it because the editor will not allow it to pass that stage. That there are a lot of stories at the just in his laptop, just there.
Lying
He
there.
cannot publish
Yeah,
it.
I'll tell you a story as well. That was 2021. I wrote superb, groundbreaking story on the issue of fraud, scam artists in Nigeria, popularly known as Yahoo Yahoo and all that. So I interviewed about three young stars who are into it, and also some NGO working in that space, analyst and a public official. And I submitted to my editor, and up to today as I speak, that story, I've left the organization by the way, but that story hasn't seen the light of day. So you see some of these issues come into play. Now that report specifically indicted the EFCC on that matter, on the way they go about what they do in regarding fraud and all that. So my editor specifically told me that, well, we need to look into this story. The in-house lawyer has to look at it to make sure that there's no blowback for the organizations. So you see, this censorship comes into play in many ways, not only for the safety of the journalist, but also that of the media house, and especially if the owner or publisher has political leanings and affiliations, that you see loads and loads of censoring coming in. Yeah.
I mean, we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to media freedom in Nigeria. Because, I mean, this is just the platform that we, the citizens, have. And we cannot just let it go like that. Can you give us, like, situations where press freedom has been compromised and what the journalists involved, what was, like, the consequence for the journalists involved?
Oh, well, off the top of my head, there are a lot of those, and I think I've mentioned some in the course of our discussion. There are a lot of situations where journalists are brutalized for just doing their work. I'll also like to shed a bit of light on the Reportera issue, the publisher of Reportera, like I said. His brother, not even him, because the DSS came to look for him. They couldn't find him, so they picked up his brother and eventually transferred to the police. So his brother has been with the police since August this year. So you see the not only physical trauma but also psychologically. I mean, I'm sure the publisher of Reportera is in hiding, because if his brother can be detained for so long, I wonder what will be done to him when they eventually get him. So I mean, that is a perfect example of how journalists have been maligned in the country. So most times the danger is not only on your own life, but your family members are also involved. Your family could be victims of your work, if I may use that. Yes.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, we were talking about the challenges and the challenges that journalists face when it comes to work, when it comes to doing their work, and especially press freedom in this country. Not just journalists, even media houses are trying to, bring these stories to light. We were talking about their challenges. Now, can we just go to the measure and possible solutions you think media, journalists, advocacy organization can do to promote press freedom in Nigeria? What do you think can be done to promote press freedom in Nigeria?
I will first say I think non-profits working in the press space are doing a lot. They are doing really great work to ensure freedom in the press space. But like I would say, I think the lack of rule of law or obedience to court orders is really impacting on press freedom. And I think one of the way that can be remedied is if there is rule of law in the country. So I will still call on NGOs, non-profit media houses working in that space to put more effort on making sure that court orders are obeyed, rule of law is existing. And I think I also think, as a recommendation, that the citizenry, the masses, need to be made aware of how important journalism and the media is to democracy in Nigeria. I don't think the citizenry are aware of the social service that journalism is. I mean, if media shuts down in Nigeria, maybe that is when they will realize how sacrosanct, how important the media is. So I think the citizens also need to join hand with journalists to help protect press freedom. So whenever a pressman or woman is brutalized, whenever the right of a media houses is taken away, I think the citizens need to join hands and protest and advocate and call on the government, because the media is serving the public. In short, journalism is called a public service. I don't know if you know, but we don't take holidays. Journalists don't take holidays.
Oh, wow.
No Christmas break, no New Year break, no holidays, because we constantly have to put out news. So I think the citizens need to be made more aware so that they can also show more support. If they rise to the occasion whenever there's infringement on the right of a journalist, and we see citizens coming out to protest, we see them coming online to put pressure on the government, I think that will, in a way, put out a signal to the government that, oh, the people are awake now and we need more press freedom.
Coming back to the citizen, I won't fault the citizen. I mean, I'm a citizen. So I won't really fault the citizen, in as much as I know that they also play an important role when it comes to ensuring that there is press freedom. Because if it's going to affect the press, it's going to affect the citizen, meaning their voice will also be restricted.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I think it's just the distrust that citizens have towards some media houses. That is why they're so skeptical about even showing their support. I mean, a media house that is not promoting or saying it as it is. It's kind of diluting the truth, and it's not hitting the nail on the head. So, and some media houses, some citizens already know that, oh, this particular media house is biased.
True.
So they are kind of just skeptical about showing interest. In as much as we know the importance that the media plays for us, we are also not, the trust is not there between, because a lot of citizens actually believe that the judiciary have been compromised, the media houses have been compromised, and literally everything have been compromised. It's like the digital platform is just the only hope they have now. So while we're also calling on the citizens to lend their voice, I think that we need to find a way to just, I don't know, maybe there's a way we can just bridge that gap where there can be enough trust from the citizens to the media houses.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. In the press space, they say the currency of a media house is trust. And once that trust is eroded, I mean, you are going downhill from there. So, and it still brings me back to what I said earlier. When you have the publisher or the owner of a media house being politically aligned, that is when you see situations like this, where media houses are biased or they lean towards a particular political ideology or political party or the government in power. So yes, maybe you might not for the citizens, but I also like to add that the right of journalists is more or less human right as well.
Yes.
So even though they might be reporting for a biased media, that doesn't erode the fact that they have human rights. They are not to be brutalized, they are not to be beaten and all that. So I'll still call on the citizens to show more support for the rights of journalists. Yes.
Thank you so much. I think while we say that, okay, we have the distrust and everything, it's important for us to understand the importance of these people to us.
Yeah.
Because no matter how I always say something like, in as much as, no matter how much you abuse or someone abuse paracetamol, that one does not mean that paracetamol is not still good for another person.
Exactly.
So you just need to understand the fact that in as much as there is this distrust, still this media houses, these journalists, they still play an important role for us. True. I mean, a lot of us are at work, at home. We literally don't even know what is going on. But journalists, they risk their life. They go to places that we know we can't go. And they bring these stories for us and let us know that this is what is going on and everything. So yeah, thank you so much for staying with us up till now. Thank you so much, our live viewers. I hope you're enjoying the conversation just as I am. Before we go and round up this episode, I just have one last question for my guest, Chinonso. So what do you think is, looking forward now, what do you think is the future prospect of journalism, of press freedom in Nigeria?
Well, we have a fairly new government in power. So we're optimistic that they will have a listening ear, that they will do more for press freedom. And looking forward, we want some of these prospective laws that have been drafted by the National Assembly around restricting media space, restricting press freedom, restricting social media. Looking forward, I think those should be dropped. We would like those to be dropped as they are an encumbrance to press freedom. I think I can remember as of last year, NITDA was putting together a draft law to restrict online news media. I mean, that law would have required online news platform to share very delicate information on their users, on the people who view their content and generally on their operations. So that was last year. I don't know how far that draft law has gone now. So looking forward, we would like some of these draconian laws and regulations to be dropped, and also the FOI Act. We would like that to be really implemented. We would like to see heavy sanctions on public offices that don't respond to FOI requests. I think that will really aid press freedom, so that when you are doing an investigative story, on any public official or any public office, you can get the information you need. So I think that act should be reviewed to give instant heavy penalties on public offices that don't respond to FOI requests.
Thank you so much. And for journalists that get beaten by public officers, what do you think can be done there?
Well, we've seen that happen. We've seen police officers beating up on journalists. We've seen even custom officers. I think this was last year or 2 years ago. I remember a journalist was properly brutalized at the National Assembly, if I'm not mistaken. So back again to what I said earlier, rule of law. So for those who engage in brutalizing journalists to be properly punished, we need rule of law, so that when the court gives an order, they are obeyed. So when we see security officials brutalizing journalists, well, most times you see that they get away with it. They don't even get charged. I mean, it's the police that has the right to charge. So when a police officer beats upon a journalist, where do we go from there? So these are the issues. That's why we need rule of law. If there is entrenched rule of law in Nigeria, these situations will automatically and naturally be solved, because with rule of law, once the court gives an order, it's immediately carried out. And you see that justice is being done. And once that begins to happen, you see that there is you see that people would start avoiding brutalizing journalists or impeding on their rights. So that is the fallout of when there's rule of law. Yeah. So I believe I think just rule of law simply will solve this for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that insightful solution and tips that you think can help us, promote press freedom in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. It's been an amazing time with my guest, Chinonso. Thank you so much for being on this show with me.
My pleasure.
And to our live viewers, thank you so much for staying with us up till now. We've come to the end of this episode. Until next time, see you. Bye.